We can start, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, or shall I say, Salo or Bacho in Joka lingo. I think we should set the mood going in the right spirit. So I am Ganesh Kudwa from 1976 batch. I'm based in Bangalore. And I kind of have retired now from my own modular furniture manufacturing business. I used to be a vendor for most of the major software names in Bangalore. And we also manufacture modular kitchens for households. I also happen to be the vice president of the IIMC Alumni Association Bangalore chapter. So going forward, we started this IIMC Sensex groups about 2 years back. And I'm glad to say that the demand and the participation has been phenomenal. And I can certainly say that these have been the most productive and informative groups that we have in our IMC community. We are also lucky and fortunate to have very informed and members like Deepak Mohoni from 12th batch. In fact, Deepak was the one who even coined the word Sensex, which has now become a household term. Then we have, of course, senior members like A.R. Singhal, we have Paritosh, who's very, very active, Karun Malkani, Sunil Sood, Debashis Bose, Rajiv Bora, and so many others. I can take any number of names. And of course, most important are today's speakers, who have been also very active contributors in our group. So that sets the background for why we are all here today. And this is the first time that we are conducting an IIMC investment mastermind webinar, where we thought that, we could use collective knowledge on a face-to-face basis rather than purely on WhatsApp groups. And this can, of course, reach a wider audience for people who are not on the Sensex groups also who have joined us. So that's the background. And to start the process, see, we Indians we save a lot. In fact, 22% of our GDP is our savings rate. But we don't invest. I mean, most of the Indians don't invest. Or if they do invest also, it has been in traditional forms like real estate and gold. But today there are far more options available, and it's far more necessary also, because we need to save, and not only save, we need to grow our savings for the future, as and when you finally retire. It has become all the more important to sort of guard against inflation, because today retirement means that you have almost 30 to 40 years of productive life after that, and you need to be well provided for and make sure that your inflation doesn't eat up into your savings. So we will now take on to the next this one. We have 4 speakers. Paritosh will be conducting the show. Paritosh is, I think, known to all in the Sensex groups, and probably many of you are seeing him for the first time face to face. It's good to put always a face to a name. So I will kind of hand over to Paritosh to take on and take it forward.
Yeah, hi guys, welcome. I think this is the first time we are doing such an event, and I hope it will be helpful for everyone. Without going deeper into my introduction or anything, I think most of us know each other. So I think I'll just hand it over to the panelists. So we'll start with, I think we'll help you understand how to invest in equities, how to plan strategies, short-term strategies. So I'll just
one second, just before we go, we are structuring this whole event, or each discussion or each presentation, in a 15-minute slot. After 15 minutes, we will have a 5-minute Q&A if there are any questions before we go on to the next speaker. we request everybody to put on your questions in the chat box, and those who are on YouTube can also put there. Also, another request is put only very relevant questions. Highs and byes to your friends can be kept out of the chat box for the now. You can always call them later, so that we don't clutter it up. And yes, Mayank, you can take on.
Okay, so first let me, Paritosh has already done the ice-breaking 2004 and Saral Stocks. Let me quickly share how today's presentation came about. So very recently on the IMCAL Entrepreneurs Group, I objected to somebody else's startup tagline, which was not very nice of me. And I ended up saying that way my stock market product tagline should be, so that, whatever the background, so that your wife doesn't nag you for jewelry. And which meant that you earn enough. And nobody asked me, what do you do? And so it was a dud. And then 2-3 days later, Mridul, who's also presenting his stuff today, Senora, he asked, was it? And I said, yes, this is what I was hoping for. And Saral Stocks and Ganesh said, let's do a presentation. And then 3-4 of our other friends you see videos of jumped in, so that it's a good value add for you guys, 15-minute slots. So I joined Saral Stocks in 2018. That is not when it started. My friend Suhas, who incidentally is not Joka, is going to be presenting it. He's the foot, hand, brain, knows everything of Saral Stocks. The genesis is from much before. So Suhas was looking for somebody dynamic to work with, market his product. I caught the startup bug sometime in 2017. I'd spent 7 long and boring years with IBM. And I was looking to get out of that rut. And we met each other at my first startup event, where I was a participant, and I was yakking away to glory. And he must have seen a spark. And I saw him to be very dynamic. And I think unlike the Afra products, so that's where it went. But in following year, 14, 15 months later, due to personal reasons which are not relevant in context of today, I had to step out and take up another job. I still very actively engage as an advisor, as a non-executive role. And maybe someday I'll come back to Saral Stocks. So what is also not relevant, but I like to kind of brag about it, my family history in the stock markets. My elder brother, who's 33rd batch, he led the tech development for India's very first online trading platform. And that wasn't ICICI Direct, it was India Bulls. So as a 25, 26-year-old back in 2000, he led the tech for that. So I'm extremely proud of that. I don't leave a chance to mention that. And now with that short introduction, I'm handing over to Suhas Patil. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayank. And thanks, IMC, for this whole great forum for the presentation for the Saral Stocks. Let me share my screen. So the tagline is higher returns faster. The idea is very simple. We spend so much time in trying to find stocks and try to manage the portfolio, it becomes almost non-effective. And so Saral Stocks, as the name suggests, simplify that whole activity in trying to find stocks and try to manage your portfolio and trying to watch your watch list. So what's the approach here? It's pretty straightforward, common sense, logical approach. You invest in growing stocks, and you do that by actually scanning the entire market daily. And this is done through the software again. So the tool lets you do that, all those things. Once you buy stocks, you are going to have some losses in your portfolio because the stock might not be taking off the way you think it is going to take off, or it might be for whatever reason it's wrong call. And so you need to sell that stock as soon as possible by minimizing losses. And then you also need to kind of move into cash at the right time when the market is kind of crashing. You need to kind of move into the cash market so that you can essentially. So all these 3 things are required for managing your portfolio, for growing your portfolio in a better way and faster way. Now, people, do kind of earn money and they save money, as Ganesh was saying earlier, But essentially, by not investing, that money is not helping you. That money is not really growing for you. And effectively, what's happening is you are working hard, and the money is maybe growing at the rate of 8-10%. With the equity market, you can have a far faster growth in your wealth. So Medallion Fund, that's being run by some non-finance guys, pretty much like techies, essentially engineers, has grown about 40% per year, has given 40% returns per year for the past 30 years. So it is possible, even for a non-finance person, to really make money in the market. Now, in typical, if you have an account with Zerodha, Upstocks, or whoever, Sher Khan, what you're doing is you're buying and selling stocks only, and all you're seeing is the portfolio that's being your stocks going up or down, and so on. What you're not able to track and do is manage your portfolio, manage your watch lists, do research, and keep stocks in your research. The stock that you find in research, add to your watch list. You're not essentially getting alerts, and you're also not getting notifications in terms of your email and maybe SMS. So your portfolio changes is not seen by you unless you log into the Zerodha account, for example. So what does Saral Stocks do? It essentially is a rule-based portfolio management. It's got simple tools to kind of import your portfolio in it. It also helps you use the index data, that as in Sensex has already gone below a certain level, you might want to sell the whole stock or portfolio kind of stuff. It lets you set default alerts. It's a completely technical based product, which means the fundamental details about the company are not in the picture. And the reason the technical data works is because the price and volume essentially move as per the market demand. And as when some stock starts doing well because fundamentally something has changed in the company. For example, Reliance has introduced Jio, and so the stock doubled in almost a year. And that kind of stuff can only happen, and you can track that kind of stuff only when you are tracking the market and finding out the trends in the market, because otherwise you get a lot of noise in the news. There's too much data. Your friends tell you buy this, other friend tells you sell that, and so on. It doesn't really work very effectively. And I'll show a quick demo at the end. So this is what the benefits I'm giving you right now. It gives you a way to kind of color code your messages, custom messages. So you can have a red message for a sell or a green for a buy, and so on. Simple things. There are default values you can set for the rules. There are rule-based engine. So for example, I can say my portfolio is down by 10%, so sell the whole thing. Or it can say some stock has gone below the MACD's zero line, and so it should be sold, for example. There are preset default rules in the software. So even if you get if you're a new user and completely novice user, you can at least get the basic things understood and basic things to track, and then change the rules if you wanted to. You get a daily email report with the portfolio alerts and stuff. You can also do a rule-based cash management. And the goal of this whole thing is to not miss identifying a stock that is about to start the growth pattern, or has already is already growing, and hence you kind of get on that stock. It's a price, volume, and trend based virtual discovery, so you can find the trending stocks quickly. You can do detailed research on the stocks through our external websites, and there are some cool things we added in terms of for the concept of a speed and acceleration price for a stock. Is a new introduction in the market. And I'll show that demo as well to you. And we are authorized partners with Upstocks, so you can buy and sell stocks from Saral Stocks through Upstocks platform, and also sync the portfolio. What that means is you can do automatically buy and sell decisions if you wanted to, all in the UI part. Okay. So here is here's the screen for the research part. I got a criteria here saved as a NYSE. Let me see. I think it's a different window. Okay, here's the window. Okay. So that window would have found these stocks in the NSE market. I think I messed up there. So let me just show you the. Okay. So here's the NSE Z crossover, Z-line crossover filter screen. It's going to select stocks of low price at least of 10 rupees value, and a volume, a stock volume that is at least 1 lakh per day. And it's going to also have other parameters here, which says, the MACD should be crossed zero line in last 5 days. And I can then add more parameters here. So now if I were to submit the report here and view report, I would get a report like this. And it's pretty dense in terms of information. And I won't give you all the explanation about all the columns. We don't have much time for that. But on a high level, what this is going to show you is the stocks, the details here, the trend. So there's a daily trend here, there's a weekly trend, MACD line, and a signal line. And these things you can study if you don't know, or we can have a detailed demo at a later time. And these two parameters, the speed and acceleration, are the two parameters we are introducing in the market. And what that gives you is relative speed of growth for a stock. So for example, in that criteria that I showed you earlier has given me about 50 stocks. And then out of which there are 7 stocks in choice stocks, because I put a speed of more than at least 2, an acceleration of 2. And what I'm seeing is these stocks here. And at a glance, you can find out that Godrej Industries here is looking pretty good in terms of the growth, the speed, acceleration, and the graph is also looking good. So for example, the daily graph is going upwards, weekly graph is kind of almost also going upwards, and so on. The portfolio is, you can import your portfolio from Zerodha or Upstox here. With Upstox, because we have a direct connection, you can do a sync Upstox and sync from the Upstox portfolio in here. Or you can import the data also from Zerodha's Tradebook. So what you are seeing on this page is the stocks that I own, or I could be owning. So Honeywell Automation, Larsen Infotech, and so on. And this analysis that you see at the bottom is essentially the rules that are getting triggered for each rules that are playing a part, and showing you the report about these this stock. So Honeywell Automation is, it's saying I'm overweight on the stock because I've got too much money invested in that stock as compared to my other portfolio stocks. Larsen Infotech. So for example, Dixon, it's saying its MACD is below zero line because it's gone below zero line right now. And there are so on. So at a glance, you can find out how the trend is looking for that stock. It also tells you how many days you're holding the stock here in your portfolio, and so on. So essentially try to optimize your portfolio and manage your things. The same thing also is true for your indices. So because the Sensex is gone below zero line, this is saying, buy stocks, sell stocks rather, and buy only rare stocks that are looking good. And these rules are actually defined in this rules page. So there are rules you can define for portfolio, for cash, or for watch list. So for example, let's look at this specific rule here, rule number 8, this one here. This is saying any stock in my portfolio, the price whose price has gone down by 4% and whose volume has gone up by 40%, I should sell that immediately. I can go and add many such rules. So essentially, my current portfolio is being analyzed by the 27 rules that you see here for the stocks, and there are about 4 rules for indices, which say either buy more or sell all or so on. I can change the rules definition by actually changing the color of the message, or change the message itself here, right here, and then define the rules as well here. I can also add more rules if I wanted to. For example, I can say there are a whole bunch of conditions here you can add, and so on. So you can do the rules here, and then okay. So now we talked about the research portion. We saw the report here. Now, if you want to see that the Godrej in the industries, you don't know what the company is about, and you want to know what the company does, and so on, you can do research on the Yahoo Finance, for example, or you can go to screener.in right from here, and then study the company. So, for example, Godrej stock price the trend has been looking good so far. The screener gives me information about the company, the fundamental details about the company, and so on. So I can pretty much quickly understand how the company is, and then decide to buy or not buy. And then one last thing is we can then define our future orders in here. So for example, I'm saying I want to buy Reliance stock if it falls to 1936 rupees price, and I want to buy 3 of them, and I will go and get triggered daily, for example. Or I can say I want to buy, let's see, Idea, and let's say Infi, and I want to do a one from group. So I can do essentially, I can spend my money in buying one of these 2 stocks, or one of n number of these stocks, provided my the conditions have been triggered on stocks, and then I can buy this thing. So I don't need to go and buy. So what currently happens is, if I want to buy, let's say, Idea, and I block my order for 1 lakh rupees, let's say on Upstocks, and if my budget is tight, if I don't have any more money, I can't go and buy Infosys. Whereas for a certain price criteria itself, and the criteria may not be met on that day. So by doing it this way, I can now buy either Idea or Infi, depending on what the condition is of that stock on that day, based on the market conditions, based on the order I've placed in the system.
Sorry to budge in, Suhas. I think we are running out of time.
Yeah.
We can take it up in the question and answers.
Yeah, so
I'm done.
I'll start with the Q&As. So first question is from Simna Krishnan sir. His question is how to search based on PE ratio. On a broad level, so it is basically how to search on fundamental ratios and everything.
So this is a completely technical tool at this point. Fundamental details we don't have, which is why we have linked.
So basically, just to answer, sorry to interfere, just to keep it, this is a technical parameter, and we do not have fundamental data on the background of several stocks. Hence, it's for the technical search and technical rules, and not fundamental rules. Am I right, Suhas?
Correct.
Do you have plans to bring in fundamental ratios? Maybe
down the road, maybe next year or so. There's a significant effort involved in getting that part taken care of. So right now is to focus on technical only.
Okay. Sandeep from 2014 batch has asked that does it support Zerodha? I think it does, right? Zerodha?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
So it does support for Zerodha for importing the data from the spreadsheets. It doesn't have a live connection with Zerodha, but you can place orders on Zerodha as well through the UI. Meaning through Shutterstock's UI, but on Zerodha.
Okay. Ganesh Kurwa from 1976 batch has a question, which is, how is it different from Screener?
So Screener only has fundamental details. You can screen on the fundamental details. It doesn't have a support for watch list, portfolio, integration with the online stocks and so on. And essentially the research that you can do on the trends and stuff, you can't do that on a screen.
Got it. This is my own question. So this is basically what will be the subscription charges, if any, and how can one actually use the platform?
So it's a web-based application because the data is so dense. We can't have it on an app on a phone. The prices are 600 rupees per month for subscription, and you get a 1 month free access to it. You can try it out, play with the application, and so on.
Right.
And so the report screen that I showed you earlier, I didn't have the chance to kind of show the entire application.
Yeah.
But the report screen itself is a modified screen. There's a different search criteria earlier. So that report screen, we're going to charge probably differently separately. But for this group, we'll have the same pricing, whether report or no report.
Oh, got it. Any discount for all the alums?
If I get a bulk order, we can do that. We'll definitely do that.
Great, great. So one last question before we start with our second panelist. So there is a question which says that we have often invested in stocks seeing the upside, right? What will be a combination that you'll suggest in terms of technical parameters that will help to indicate an upcoming movement? So actually, what can be the right combination, or how can one actually understand and reach to that combination is the question.
So there are multiple things we can do. We can see the stock, if it's going up at a same volume, but consistently moving up, it shows accumulation. If you see a drastic volume change, then it shows more demand on the stock. So these are pretty good indicators of the thing. When you go to a Mela, you see a large crowd in front of a stall. You tend to want to see why they are sitting there and watching it. The same principle here as well. When many people start buying the stock, you want to see why they are buying it. And so the actual action of somebody buying the stock will indicate there's an interest in the stock. And so that's another way of looking at that and saying, does the stock make sense to be bought in my portfolio?
Got it. Got it. I think there is a question which says, can it be imported from other platforms? I think we have already answered that. That Zerodha and Upstocks can be.
We can import, but the spreadsheet then needs to be modified a bit. But if there's a requirement for a different kind of spreadsheet, we'll support that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. In the interest of time, we'll move to our second panelist. I would like to introduce you to Sandeep Baid. He's a 1999 graduate from IIM Calcutta, of course. He has been a director at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. He has been a managing director at Indostar Capital. He has been advisor to DSP and founder of certain advisories. Currently, he's the founder of Multipie. So I think I'll leave it to him to introduce and go forward from here.
Hi, thank you so much, everyone, for the time. I hope my visual as well as voice is clear there for everybody.
Yes.
Lovely. So thanks for the intro. Passed out from IIM Calcutta in '99. Worked in Mumbai since. From 2006 to 2010, I was heading debt and credit for Bank of America, DSP Merrill Lynch. Subsequently that, I co-founded an NBFC called Indostar, which went public in 2018. Currently, I am on my next venture, Multipie. We'll talk more about that later. Incidentally, out of my two co-founders, one more is from IIM Calcutta, Rajkumar Singhal from 1996. And the third poor guy is from Oxford. So, yeah. So, at Multipie, we believe that market timing and percentage mix of asset allocation is the single biggest determinant of long-term wealth creation. Just imagine if you had moved to fixed income in January 2020 and moved back into equity in March 2020, right? At most times, equity tends to be the asset that most creates long-term wealth. But to manage your portfolio, your overall risk and volatility, people typically have these 4 asset classes on the screen: equity, fixed income, gold, and real estate. Keeping the time constraints in mind today, we will talk more of fixed income and real estate today, and the other asset classes for some other day. So let's come to fixed income. On your screen, you see the graph of the 10-year interest rates for the last 20 years. You will observe that they have been moving between a band of 6 to 8.5%. Today at 6.23%, the 10-year G-Sec is at about the 14th percentile on the lower end. That means about 86% of the time it's been higher than today. The market is anticipating higher government borrowings. In fact, since the budget announcement about 2 months ago, the 10-year yield is already up by 20 basis points. So our view is that given the government borrowings that the market anticipates for the next 2 years, the current low level of rates, the 1-year G-Sec incidentally is even much lower than the 10-year G-Sec. Rates will tend to go up, which means that long duration bonds and long duration mutual funds will not do well. They could give you very, very average kind of returns. And if rates really go up, even more than what the market thinks, then they could actually give you negative returns also. So net is, we are saying that it's time to reduce duration and exposure to long duration debt mutual funds. So if we are saying reduce long duration, then what are the options in short duration on fixed income? So typically they are the usual liquid funds, savings account, fixed deposits, and ultra short duration mutual funds. The yields on these are mostly about 3 to 4%. Some savings accounts of certain banks can give you higher returns of up to 7%. And this is something that we favor. We'll talk more about it on the next slide because this is money available on call. It does not take away your liquidity. Whatever money you have, maybe today in a lower paying savings account or in a liquid fund of a mutual fund, can be moved here without any sacrifice of liquidity. And you can increase your returns from 3.5 to maybe 6 to 7%. But what about risk, right? I mean, that's the first thing we look at. So I think it's noteworthy to see that since independence, no depositor has ever lost money in a scheduled commercial bank. PMC was a cooperative bank. Even scheduled commercial banks that did not perform well, most notably Yes Bank in recent times, the depositors were bailed out by the government. 81 bond holders were equity holders. They were not depositors. So scheduled commercial banks are important to the system. RBI has always bailed them out since independence. So there is an inherent level of safety in a scheduled commercial bank. Of course, we are not recommending that you go for the more adventurous scheduled commercial banks like a Yes Bank. We like among the banks that pay higher savings rate on the savings account, we like IndusInd and a smaller bank called AU Small Finance Bank. Some statistics are there on the screens. And both are well regarded by the capital markets. We have also given the price to book in the capital markets for these two banks because that's a measure of how the market is viewing these banks. Because for many years, Yes Bank was showing stellar results, but the market was very skeptic about them. So that's why the market is also a good benchmark, and we have given the market price to book multiple also. On other parameters like capital adequacy, both these banks are very comfortable. Of course, there are lots of other scheduled commercial banks that you could choose based on your own personal comfort. These two are just our picks. But broadly, we are okay with most scheduled commercial banks. We are not okay with cooperative banks. So this is, an easy actionable step for you to increase your return on your liquid or idle funds from 3.5% that you are getting currently to between 6 and 7%. It's not a super normal return, I'll admit, but it's pretty easy to do, not much risk involved. So thought would just share one actionable step with the listeners of this group. However, 6.5 is not really very high, right? So how do we increase it a little bit more? Now, this is only for investors who do have a short-term appetite for equity risk. If you do not have appetite for equity risk at all, this one is not for you. So how this one works is that many savings account can be converted into an ASPA account, which remains a savings account. Your existing savings account can be made into an ASPA account. The full form of ASPA is applications supported by blocked amount. So basically, when you apply in an IPO using this ASBA account, the money does not leave your account and you continue to earn the rate of interest that you normally get in your savings account. So using this money in your savings account, you can bid for IPOs, which are expecting higher subscription numbers, have higher gray market premiums. And while you continue to earn interest on your application amount because the money does not leave your savings account, if your allotment becomes successful, you get a small additional return by selling on listing. To take a math, let's say you have 100 rupees in your savings account. You have applied in an IPO which has got oversubscribed 100 times. So what you will get is 1 rupee allotment. Or let us say the IPO opens at a 50% premium. So you will make 50 paisa. So overall, you have made 0.5% additional over a 1 week period. This is over and above the savings account rate that you get. Now, obviously, there is risk involved because not all IPOs may open as well as expected. So Multipie does give notifications to its subscribers on which IPOs we expect to do well. If you wish to receive those, you could subscribe by providing your email on our website, multipie.co, and see if this works for you. Overall, we put it as a low-risk strategy where we recommend only the best IPOs that are there in the market. And so far, it's been working well. If this sounds too complex, don't worry. You can just simply move your money to a scheduled commercial bank, giving a higher paying savings account rate, and to give you at least 300 bips more on what you earn on liquid funds. So our fixed income summary is basically we are bearish on rates, and therefore we are advising you to reduce duration. On the shorter duration, we prefer higher paying savings account over liquid funds of mutual funds. And for those who have short-term equity risk appetite, could consider investing in select IPOs using the ASBA account that we just explained. And we would be happy to notify you on which IPOs we think will list at a premium. So now we'll move to the next part of the presentation, which is talking about real estate. Now, real estate can be broadly divided into commercial and residential. On commercial, we have a neutral to slightly bearish view, and we prefer REITs over making tangible hard real estate investments simply because hard real estate is not easy to manage. And even on REITs, actually, we have a neutral view. On residential, however, we have a positive view, and we are further going to discuss it in the next slide. So this slide actually shows you home loan rates over the last 10 years, as well as the rental yield, or in other words, the cost of renting a house, and the difference between the two. So the bar chart that you see in the center is actually the difference between the two. And this difference is now at its lowest at about 3.7%, lower than it's ever been in the last 10 years. So effectively, it means that the additional cost that you pay to own a house vis-a-vis renting that same house is actually the lowest in the last 10 years. Now, buying versus renting has been and will always be a personal call. However, for those planning to own sometime in the near future, now seems a good time. because of the statistics we discussed on the previous slide. The additional cost of ownership, assuming you are funding your house through a home loan, is just 4%. Now, if we apply the rule of 72, which says that, if you want to earn 4% on your asset, it's enough if your asset doubles in 72 divided by 4, which is 18 years, you would have made 4% return on your asset. Now, will real estate assets double in the next 18 years? I think there's a very, very strong probability that they will, because the sector is coming off a big 7-year time and price correction. It's characterized by very few investors in the market being there to buy real estate today. In fact, investors are net sellers, the ones who had bought real estate in 2015. And as we at Multiply strongly believe, the best time to enter an asset class is when other investors are not buying but selling. Of course, this whole thing is being discussed for people who are looking at a house for self-ownership and usage. On this slide, however, we are moving to the next bit. Does residential real estate make sense as a pure investment, not for self-occupancy, but for pure investment? I think the first thing here is that this is not for everyone, because residential real estate requires higher time and effort commitment, understanding of specific projects as a prerequisite. So compared to that, investing in index mutual funds is much simpler, can be done by everyone. And this is something that we also recommend at Multiply, but more on that other asset classes at some other time. However, if you are one of those who have the time, the patience, the wherewithal to dabble in residential real estate as a pure investment, 2 pointers from our side. Investments in under construction projects from reputed developers can give higher returns because your entry price is lower. Today, under construction stuff, depending on micro market, but generalizing, would go at about a 20% discount to corresponding ready. So your entry price is lower. Plus, you can also make staggered payments, which increases your IRR as you don't have to make a bulk upfront payment. Comes with its risk, so not for everyone. Finally, I want to spend a minute on what Multiply is. We are building a tech-enabled investor community. We expect the beta launch to happen in June. We'll talk about some features here. It allows you to follow other people with their prior permission and get insights from their real portfolios, which Multiply uploads from authentic sources. Okay, so basically, I think it's happened to all of us that you bought HDFC Bank because your friend has told you. You don't know when he has sold. So Multiply will solve that problem. We will be coming out with our beta in June. A lot of other features, personalized advisory on your portfolio, fundamental stock selection, because this is a community for long-term investors, not really for traders, which is fine. We need to pick up our segment. And we look forward to having some of you using us. And today, of course, we have talked only of the features that are unique to us, but we believe even the other stuff like personal advisory, etc., will hopefully be useful to you. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So I'll give this to Mridul Jalan sir. He's currently managing director at Senora Advisors. I think you can take it forward from here. Mridul, you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I didn't just.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. First of all, welcome to this small webinar of the group of coming from the same institute and some from outside. It's a pleasure to speak about Senora and markets and my knowledge. I'll start by talking about what I plan to discuss. So we will discuss direct equity investments. Most of us here anyways would be having access to mutual funds, debts, and other instruments. We at Senora believe that direct equity investments is equally important in one's life saving. There are many aspects to it. These are the common perceptions versus reality. I will not spend much time on this. Once the presentation is shared, people can look at what we believe. One aspect which I want to really highlight is the common perception is equity is an egg in itself. The answer is wrong. Equity is actually a basket in itself. No two stocks are same, no two individuals are same, and hence the risk of each stock and the return of each stock will be very different, and hence they can't be called in same egg. Many people believe that direct equity investments is not needed especially when you're doing mutual fund exposure. We at Senora don't believe that. There's enough study we have done to have that belief. The biggest difference is, while the objective is same, to park your long-term money into something which is slightly risky and give you a better return than debt, yes, but neither their return trajectory is same, neither their risk is same. Mutual funds typically invest in 40 to 60 stocks, whereas a direct equity investment typically is of a concentrated portfolio. And the returns of stocks which have identified in direct equity investments cannot match the mutual fund return on any parameter. Why a SEBI registered investment advisors versus oneself? There are enough parameters. I will not go deep into that. So what is Senora? Now, first of all, Senora, let me explain you, is unlike a lot of us, we do not do third-party products. We are a product house. We are an equity focused house. We think we understand equities and hence we only want to focus on equity. I had near a decade of experience in equity market before I went to IMC in 2003 on the retail side, and another decade of experience post my MBA on the institution side. I found a lot of difference in the style perception of both the segments. The biggest fallacy which I found is that in individuals, which is whether HNI or retail, typically tends to put the money in one go, and hence they typically invest in PMS or mutual fund through SIP. The fact is, both these platforms buys the stock which are based on the weightages, while the risk reward is very different when the stock is cheaper compared to when it is expensive. There's a lot of logic. I will not discuss that. These are the points which differentiate Senora with the peers. We have 4 products. One is Alpha, which is on the long only investment. One is Alpha Covered, which is covered call strategy, and there are 2 derivative products. Given the profile of the people on this audience and in the panel, I will discuss Alpha product in this presentation. Alpha is a concentrated long only portfolio where we invest in 10 to 14 stocks. Each of these stocks has to be a market leader, a price maker, and not a price taker. The portfolio strategy is divided in 2 parts. One is the core and one is the tactical. In core, we have around 2/3 of the weightage where we identify 6 to 8 stocks where we want to hold it for n number of years. When I say n number of years, I mean at least 5 to 10 years. The second is the tactical, which is 1/3 of the portfolio where we invest in lower weightages. These are the stocks where something has become very cheap because of certain issues and we believe that they will bounce back or in the near future, or something where there's a sector change, which is the tailwinds driving a sector up, and we'll identify the market leaders in that and invest in that. None of them is extremely short-term investments. All these are medium to long-term investments. The features, and these are the typical ticket size we have kept so that both the retail and the HNI can invest. While there's a headroom for mid caps 0 to 20%, in actuality, we don't invest in mid caps. The name mid caps has been given here because some of the market leaders like Mothers and Sumi is in the mid cap category, but it is a market leader in auto hangs. Hence, because of the SEBI rules, if that is a mid cap, we have defined it as a mid cap. Now, this is our stock picking, which I think is the most important parameter in building a portfolio. These are the parameters we take care of to identify in the stock. So we need quality management, we need margin of safety, we need a company which will show a CAGR of 15 to 20% earning growth. Typically, we tend to enter stocks when they are at the lower end of the multiple so that the growth in the portfolio is not only from the earnings growth, but also from the multiple re-rating of the stock which happens. This is a model portfolio for one of the clients, which I'm going to run through on a no-name basis in the second part of the presentation. So these are our top holdings as of today. And there's other universal stocks which we keep in radar, but we have not bought because they have not been attractive enough for us. Some of them are there in the portfolio, but their weightages are low, and hence we will add them as and when they correct move. This is our allocation style. We, unlike a PMS or a mutual fund, we do not believe in putting all the money on one go. So what do? We create a allocation amount for the whole year with each of our client. We invest that money over a period of time. The reason is very simple. Nobody can predict the market. When I can't predict the market, whether it will be 5% down or 5% up a month down the line, I don't want to time the market. So what I will do is I'll keep investing the money so that it's a similar to a SIP model of the mutual fund. The other reason is that, for example, Titan, that's a stock we have been adding literally every month for all our clients, which means that even if the market is up and Titan doesn't participate in the rally, I get to invest more in Titan at the lower end of the valuation. In the short term, it might lead to some underperformance, but over a long term, it generates more alpha. Second part is, when you invest 25 lakhs today, I may not have all the right stocks at the right prices for me. Hence, if I have to buy something of that sort in the future, either I need to deploy more money, which I may or may not have, or I need to sell something from the portfolio, which I may or may not want to. Sanora believes that by investing in a scattered manner, you get good stocks in the future at right prices without having to compromise on either of the aspects. These are for last 1 year, these are the changes we had in our portfolio for our which is a model, as in for a model client. The weightages may vary, which is why I have not written the weightages of those stocks in that portfolio. But these are the entry and exits which we have done in our portfolio. These are our monthly highlights in terms of how we have performed with Nifty. Why do we compare ourselves with Nifty? Because we are a large cap focused fund. We only invest in large caps. So benchmark for us is Nifty. This is how we have done on a month-on-month basis. The capital here is assumed that when the capital is invested, we take Nifty of that day to define the returns. As you will see, this is one of the portfolios. I've picked one of my client's portfolio, a report which I had sent to him on 9th March. This is what the performance was. Now, this is the Alpha Covered Fund, where we kind of take care of the base portfolio and we try and write out of money options so that the risk of the portfolio comes down and you try and garner extra return, which means that in a range bound market, you will make a lot more money. This product is for a lump sum large investment. Because there's options and because we need to write options, we need to have a base quality and quantity in this portfolio. Hence, it's for the larger ticket size investors. People who want to build portfolio over a period of time, we put them to Alpha. People who want to build a portfolio with a lump sum investment because they have a big money which has got freed recently because of some action, we kind of recommend Alpha Covered to them. Alpha Covered is, as the strategy points out, is about selling out of money options, but it doesn't mean we sell the whole of the portfolio with out of money. What to sell is a lot of analysis which goes into it. If the stock is expensive, we will try to sell options because the stock might be expensive for a small period of time and market might just keep it expensive for a longer period of time. There have been many cases where we have exited quality stock because we felt they are expensive for the short term, but they never come back to our aspirative levels. Alpha Covereds take care of that part. This is a example of how does the Alpha Covered work. Each month, if we believe that a stock is expensive, we will go and do some out of money option writing. It doesn't mean, again, the whole of the portfolio gets option written. It doesn't mean that we do naked option writing. If we do not have the base quantity per the lot size, we will not write options for that part. And these are the features. These are the model portfolio of Alpha covered. So I could have run through a lot more details, but I prefer to do that offline because let's try and keep it concise in the interest of everybody. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mridul Jalan. So basically, what we want to do is we will take questions at the end. For now,
Perfect.
let's just run through the presentations, and then
Perfect.
we'll have an exhaustive Q&A. So all the participants, both here and on YouTube, you can actually tag the panelists and directly ask them questions, and then we'll take them at the end. Okay. So I would like to invite our next participant panelist, and who is Abhijit Roy. So he's the founder of GoldenPie. GoldenPie has got funding from Rainmatter Investments, and I think what the product is and how does it work and how can you do investments there, Abhijit will take you through that. Over to you, Abhijit. Abhijit, you're not audible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paritosh. Thanks for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to get this opportunity to talk about bonds and debentures as an investment asset class, and about GoldenPie, to this learned and experienced crowd over here. So to start off, I am Abhijit, and I'm the co-founder CEO of GoldenPie Technologies. I started the company with my co-founder Samir in 2017. Like Paritosh mentioned, we are a Rainmatter funded company, and we focus purely on fixed income investments around bonds and debentures. So to start off, like rightly Ganesh pointed out at the very beginning of this discussion that we are having, that we Indians as a nation have been much risk averse from investing in equity, and we save a lot, right? Around 20 to 25% is basically the savings rate of the economy, right? And right now, if you look at the bank FD volume, it's around 2.3 trillion US dollars. And unfortunately, as we all know, that bank interest rates have continuously been slashed from since 2014 onwards, and right now it's at an interest rate of around 5%, right? Wherein the inflation itself stands slightly above 5%, around 6%. So there's a massive need in the economy for an alternate investment asset class, wherein the characteristics of FDs are completely preserved, which is the returns are going to be fixed till maturity. There's going to be very little to moderate rate of exposure of risk, and the level of returns that we get to earn from this fixed investments are better than bank FDs to safely beat the inflation and have a healthy earnings beyond that one. I think that's exactly where bonds and debentures fit this investment need across the Indian economy. So to start off, like I mentioned, we are all aware that bank FD rates have got continuously slashed. Like in 2011, it was around 9.5%. As of today's date, it is around barely 5% for all the scheduled commercial banks, the large, both private and public sector lenders in the country. When we look at the retired individuals in the economy who have also relied a lot on getting their interest income from bank FDs, right? For them also, it has been a very rude shock, a hard hit for them, wherein their returns to meet their livelihood has been affected tremendously. So there's, this is basically the need around which bonds and debentures come into the picture. Now, bonds and debentures essentially have been in the market since ages, people have invested in that, corporations have invested in that, but it has been an institutional game, or the game for people who have been aware of that particular market. So before I go ahead, I'll just set the context that this is not going to be an in-depth analysis around bonds and debentures essentially, but rather a kind of an introductory session on bonds. A lot of us would have probably just been aware about what bonds and debentures are from a theoretical perspective during our MBA days, or would have read up, somewhere around that information. but its practical implications and how we can invest in them successfully to earn greater fixed returns with safety is something that I'm going to project over here. So what are bonds, right? Bonds are fixed income securities. All entities in the market, including the government, the state government, the corporates, the banks, all of them raise money to expand the business, to meet their capital adequacy ratios, and for several other such needs, for which they issue bonds and debentures as fixed income instruments to the lenders. And what would be the purpose for these lenders, for institutions or people who are investing into bonds and debentures? So firstly, the levels of returns on bonds and debentures, the non-convertible debentures, are way more than that of fixed deposits. And there is a regular cash flow which is built into every single bond and debenture, be it a government security or be it a normal corporate bond. The bonds would be paying out coupons, which would be hitting the investor's bank account at a regular sequence. It can be monthly, annually, quarterly, based upon the specific bond tranche. There are a specific set of bonds which are extremely suitable for investors in the 40% and above investment bracket, and wherein tax-free bonds become very suitable. So tax-free bonds are a bunch of bonds issued by public sector units in the country, like NHAI, REC, PFC, right? Indian Railways Finance Corporation. They have all raised money in the past through these tax-free bonds. The speciality about them is that though the coupon rates are pretty much on the lower side, around 7%, and the current yields would be around 4.5-ish levels, but then the interest income that you're getting is completely tax-free. So the pre-tax rates, if you consider on them for somebody in the 40% or above tax bracket, it safely comes to around 7.5-ish to 8-ish level, which is a very decent level considering that this is completely safe, issued by PSUs, right? And pretty much similar to what an FD would be. The third thing is around time-bound goals, be it for individuals or institutions. So if there are certain specific timelines to objectives being met, be with respect to business or with respect to your own personal life for investment, bonds and debentures are a perfectly suitable investment class over there. So let's say, for example, I as a corporate, I know I have got certain major expenses to be met every 6 months, right? Wherein there's a recurring expense that I have to meet. I can always structure my investments into short-term duration bonds, which actually mature at the end of every 6 months, right? And I get that assured interest income, which is more than bank FDs. It's at best or even better than liquid funds, and of course it matures at the end of every six months. For personal investment, if I have got time-bound goals of the next 5 years, the kids are going to go to the college, or I have got certain other life goals to be met, which are well timed, then I can always buy bonds which would mature by that point of time, and that essentially frees us from any kind of market volatility with respect to the market in the changing in prices, because it's a hold to market strategy. And yes, the other most popular investment avenue for bonds and debentures is basically to save on your capital gains. So when we sell off physical assets, there is a capital gain that we make. Now, when there is a long-term capital gains made, up to 50 lakhs can be invested in certain specific tranches of bonds. One is in NHAI, the other one is in REC, wherein you can invest up to 50 lakhs, and that is completely tax exempted. This capital gains that you have made by selling your assets. So it's a quick comparison between bank deposits and bonds, and wherein we can talk a little bit about other parameters also. So bank deposits returns, like we saw in the previous presentations, rightly, would be in the range of 5 to 6%. When you consider the bonds and debentures, it would be between 8 to 12%. Now, when I'm talking about these bonds, I'm focusing specifically on the corporate debentures, which are rated AAA to A rated only. So in Golden Pi, we only provide the top quality bonds which are within this range. We do not even showcase any bonds which are lower than A rated. So as per the government of India, investment grade bonds are till BBB rated, but still we have restricted ourselves to from AAA to A rated only. That's one information I wanted to share. On the consistency basis, of course, bonds and debentures are just like bank FDs, right? Just in the way a bank FD would be giving you fixed returns, bonds and debentures, when you hold to maturity or when you hold to the call date of a particular bond, essentially your returns are completely fixed. It's not going to change. The yield at which you are investing, let's say you are investing in the yield of IndusInd Bank bond, right? IndusInd Bank FD would be around 5.6 to 6%. But when you consider the IndusInd Bank bond, right, even if it is an AT1 bond, the returns are around 9.76% as of date, right, as of Friday's date, from the multiple institutions in the country who are the sellers, right? That's the approximate kind of return that you'd get. Now, let's say you're investing in this IndusInd Bank bond for 4 years, right? Basically, the bond would get called off at the end of 4 years, right? So essentially, your returns of 9.76% if you invest today remains preserved till the date it is called off from the market, right? So that's a kind of extra returns that you get from a fixed income investment. When it comes to safety, of course, AAA rated bonds are the safest, and as we keep traversing down, we take some amount of risk exposure. And yes, when you consider AT1 and Tier 2 bonds, there is a finite level of risk over there, as we have seen in the past regarding certain of the banks where the AT1 bonds have been called off or the Tier 2 bonds have been called off. But yes, the fact over here remains is to be selective in selecting the largest private sector or the public sector bonds, banks, which have got very good capital adequacy ratio, the liquidity ratios maintained, like IndusInd Bank, like State Bank of India or Punjab National Bank, wherein you can always come in and deploy your capital because the levels of safety are significantly higher over there. Tax benefits, once again, on bank deposits, the interest rates, the interest income that we would get is annually subject to TDS, unless we submit a 15G or 15H form. Bonds and debentures from provisions of the Government of India are completely TDS free. It's the onus of the investor to declare at the end of the year that this has been my interest income from from other sources, and under that you mentioned the interest income that you would have done. And with respect to the usage, like we talked about, bank FD is just deposited. Either you can talk to the bank manager and generate regular interest withdrawals from there for your usage, or you have to break it in between, or wait till maturity to get the money. For bonds and debentures, the cash flow is inbuilt into them by virtue of the coupon payments, right? And there are a host of other purposes which also suit your needs, like tax-free income, saving capital gains, and of course there are a certain set of bonds and debentures which can also be used for pledging for FNO operations. I'll quickly cover the bond terminology. So consider this just as a basic bond 101, a session for ones who might have forgotten it. And for the ones we already know, I just like to jog your memory through the terms. So every bond, when it is issued, it hits the market via two routes. Either it would be a private placement route, which is like 97% of the bonds hit the market through private placement. So we hardly get to hear anything about it because there is no advertisement around it. Or it would be hitting the markets through the initial public offerings, wherein there would be advertisement in the newspapers and TVs and through social media channels. So now every bond, when it is issued, it would come with a typical face value. If it comes through the IPO route, it will have a face value compulsory of $1,000. If it is coming through the private placement, it can range anywhere between 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs. So that's number one. The coupon rate is a rate which is basically the actual capital or the interest money that I as an investor will be getting in my bank account associated with my DMAT. So when I invest in a bond and let's say the face value is 10 lakh, so this 91,500 is going to be the coupon payment that I will be receiving in my bank account on a regular basis till the bond matures. Maturity call date is the one when the bond will expire. You will get back your face value of investment back into your bank account along with the outstanding interest. Call date is essentially for the perpetual bonds issued primarily by the banks and certain classified NBFCs. wherein on that particular day, the issuer would exercise a call option to call off your bonds. Now, in 99% of the cases, the bonds get called back. For all the large, public and the private lenders, it gets called back because we are in a reducing interest rate economy. They would have issued perps at a higher interest rate. It makes all sense for them to call it and call it back and issue new fresh set of bonds at a lower interest rate, so that the entire cost of capital, cost of borrowing comes down. Credit rating. So the most popular credit rating agencies in the country are CRISIL, CARE, ICRA, and a few others like Brickworks, IND Ratings. Now, it's good to follow the credit rating of these agencies. They have done a bit of a sloppy work in the previous years, but then SEBI and other market regulators have clamped down heavily on them, so that right now what I know by working very closely with them and from the NBFCs is that they are doing a very stringent work around the credit rating. So any credit rating that you're seeing now has actually undergone a very good level of due diligence, and well, you can take that as a benchmark for evaluating the kind of riskiness that might be there in that particular bond that you're investing. Yield to maturity is the effective returns that you would get, because essentially when you buy bonds, you wouldn't always get bonds from the primary placements. You have to buy it from the secondary market. And in the secondary market, which is basically the OTC market, their bonds would be going at either a premium or a discount or a par value, right? So the value at which you're investing is the one which is going to determine what is going to be your yield on your investment if you're holding till maturity. And finally is a payment frequency, which is essentially the frequency in which the coupon payments will be paid by a particular bond to your bank account. I'll quickly take you through types of bonds. Well, you can categorize bonds into multiple buckets rather than looking at a specific bond like State Bank of India bond, or let's say South Indian Bank bond, or or Tata Capital's bond. You can look at it from a very different perspective also. Bonds which typically give 10% and above returns, that's something that we classify as high yield bonds. Then there are a popular investment category of bonds termed as the state government guaranteed bonds, like the UP Power Corporation or the Meghalaya Energy Corporation, NICO bonds, or UPPCL bonds. The speciality about these bonds is that they are basically guaranteed by the state itself regarding the payment around the interest and the principal that the investors will get back. And it's an irrevocable kind of a guarantee which is assigned to these bonds. And for these specific states, essentially these states actually factor in the bond payments, the bond interest payment that needs to be done into their yearly provisions in the budget also, making the bonds pretty much safe. Of course, there are other bonds.
Abhijit, I'll just like to tell you that can we wrap it up as soon as possible?
Sure.
Sorry for the interruption. Because
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. So so the whole thing is that this is basically a concept around collections that we call on the Golden Pipe platform. So I'll just take a couple of minutes to quickly take you through the Golden Pipe platform, and and then we can go over to the questions. So well, this is our Golden Pipe investment platform, which is wherein typically we aggregate bonds and debentures across the largest institutions in the country, and on a daily basis, 4,000 crores worth of AAA to A-rated bonds are freshly curated, priced, and they're put up on the platform with their pricing on the Golden Pipe platform and through our other channels also. So if I do a discover bonds, essentially, I will be coming to a list of the bonds that are available in the market right now with their final pricing as of Friday. So these prices, I mean, whatever you would be getting to see, it would be for the date of Friday. I'll just quickly log in and show you the details. Yeah, so this is the curated set from Friday. It's basically a list of bonds that's there. When you click on any particular bond, like say IndusInd Bank, like you mentioned, it is around 9.77% yield as of Friday's pricing. If you go in over here, you will see all the details around the bond, the cash flow that gets generated on the bond on this right-hand side panel. till the bond is called off. Then there's certain informations around the specific tranche. So we consume data from multiple sources to show the relevant data around every single bond tranche. And then an exhaustive information around the issuer, that who is the issuer, when did they start the business, to give a very holistic kind of an information on every single bond tranche for investors' investment. And then you can go ahead and you can make your investment by going in from here.
Okay.
So
that was a great overview.
About
that was a great overview. I think
sure.
Starting from the presentation to what bonds are and to how people can go about investing, I think that was a great gist. So thank you everyone for your time. I think we'll start with the Q&A. So one generic question which I'll just put forward to the panelists here, and like we can start with the discussion there, right? So this question is from Arun. His question is that what is the panel's advice with respect to asset allocation? The issue he faces is there aren't too many viable types of assets that I can invest in. I have a fair portfolio of MF, debt, gold, and RE. However, I'm sitting on a pile of cash that I want to deploy into productive assets. Any suggestions there? So basically, he's not sure where to put his money right now, considering the current market situations. So I would request the panels to actually give their views and discuss it.
So let me very quickly start with my view, and I'll be very clear. My point is, his question is pretty right, because when we speak to bond experienced people, they are saying about interest rate going up, which means bond prices will go down. Equity looks expensive to people. The answer lies in the fact is, what is the duration of the money for? If it's a long duration money, frankly, my first advice to him is, don't worry about the movements in the short term. If it's a short duration money, you really need to worry about it in terms of allocation. A long duration money should be well spread, well invested over a period of time, so that shocks like last year can be absorbed. So there is no firm answer. The answer lies is, you need to plan your investments based on when do you need this money back. Don't look by short-term returns for a long-term money. That's the first learning I have from my equity market experience.
Cool. I'll just go next, and I'll add a few points from my side. Like Mridul rightly said, that it essentially depends upon I as an investor, if I'm looking to put in my money in the market, what is the duration for which I'm looking to be invested, number one, and what is the kind of returns or expectations that I can actually digest even if things go completely crazy. So I think from my perspective, what I would do if I have got sufficient amount of capital which I'm looking to deploy, I would spread it, given that I have very little amount of time to monitor stocks directly. Either I would put it into some very good quality equity mutual funds, say 50%, and the remaining 50% I would put into bonds and debentures spread across multiple tenures from 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, up to 5 or 7 years, right? So there would essentially be a maturity of the bonds around these periods, very high quality bonds with very good returns of 8-9%, which you get to preserve for the period of 5 to 7 years. At the same time, if you're invested in equity for a period of around 5 to 7 years, right, you would get the upside of the equity market on the average basis also. And that would essentially give a very healthy, rich returns for your investments. Yeah.
Great. Any opinions, Suhas, Sandeep?
I am biased because I'm biased on the equities. I firmly believe that equities will outperform anything that is out there that's possible for somebody. But as somebody earlier said, Mridul said earlier, it depends completely on your time horizon. How long can you keep the money in there? And as the mutual fund walas always say, if you keep the money for 5 years, there's zero chance of money going down, because they'll show the history of the mutual funds and how it has done in over a period of n number of years. But at a personal level, most of my money is in equity and mutual funds. I don't have any money in bonds, but in these two other ones, I keep money in.
So add to it, yes, risk and time duration decides where and how the allocation has to be. That's for me, the summary of the funda.
I think Sandeep is again not audible. Sandeep, you're not audible. Okay, so I think he's not audible. Can someone just connect with him?
Sandeep, if you can hear us.
No, I don't think so.
So let's
Hear
go on to
us.
the next.
Yeah.
Let's go on
So
to the next
yeah. So
questions.
we'll go on to the next question. So there is a question. So it has already been answered in the chat, but I think we should take this up for the general audience. So the question is from Amit Nigam. So he says that, do we get a default set of rules to start with its fully DIY? So, and this question is to Saral Stocks. And following up on that question, he asked that, do you provide stock records as soon as someone like signs up on your platform or anything?
So there are default scan parameters that are set up in the system,
Right.
and it also has the default rules. The default rules being, the stock has fallen by certain percentage and volume by certain percentage, and then kind of sell or buy or whatever that condition may be. There's some default rules already set up in the system, so we can start using the system immediately and fine tune it as you go. And I forgot the second question that you had.
The second question is, do you provide stock records and or research is a prerequisite? Like, do they have to sign up only for research? And is stock?
We are not certified by SEBI, recognized by SEBI in terms of the RIA licensing. So we cannot recommend, and we don't recommend. But essentially, this tool being a technical tool, you can define your parameters and find them. So there's nothing magical about this. There's no fundamental analysis that we are doing and kind of giving you a recommendation in terms of buy or sell, not buy. It is your decision. And as you fine tune your investments, you'll realize kind of where to put money in when not to put money in.
Got it. So this question is to Senora Advisors. What is the average returns at Senora? This is from Anurag Patel.
So average returns of Senora from last 3.5 years when we have got the SEBI license is around 2 to 3% more than Nifty. Not every year we have beaten Nifty. The return,
this is annually, right?
So I'm saying yes, we benchmark ourselves to Nifty. I will not able to give a exact return. The answer is very simple. We do not have a model portfolio. We do not have a style where we say invest every money on day zero. Our style is very simple. आपको अगर 100 रुपए invest करने हैं अगले 1 साल में, we'll break it up based on as and when over the years, right? So hence my return cannot be a fixed number over a period of time like a mutual fund or something. The whole ethos and style is very different, and hence even the model portfolio will have names with a range of holding rather than a percentage. So our style is very different from the convention because we believe that you cannot time the market and you should not try to time the market.
Great. Okay.
So the last part is we always answer with reference to Nifty. With reference to Nifty, since inception, we have beaten Nifty by 2 to 3% every year.
That's great. That's awesome. So
just wanted to check if I'm audible now.
Yeah, you are audible now.
Great. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So
nothing to add, please.
I think we have had specific questions. Now a generic one again. So this is from Ashutosh Gawali. His question is how efficient profitable trades are using only TA and ignoring fundamental analysis and news.
Actually, no. So we can't really do just technical analysis and hope to make money. The reason we have linked with fundamental research providers such as Screener or Yahoo Finance or and so on is for the exactly for finding out the details about the things. The idea is to kind of find the trend first. So there are two ways of finding the good stock. One, you kind of study the market, find the fundamentals, track the stock, and then when it starts moving, you decide to kind of move your money into that stock from wherever you had invested. Other is you start looking at the trends first, and if the trends are moving, and then you find the stock that is worth looking at more carefully, then you can actually study that company and decide to buy or not buy. Many times I've seen technical analysis giving you good numbers of stocks, and you look at them and you don't see a trend and you don't see an underlying trend in it. There's no point in buying that stock, because today it is gone by 10% up. It might go down 10% down tomorrow, and then you might be stuck with that kind of stock.
Right.
So the stock I showed was Godrej Properties, and if you saw that stock, it's a fundamentally good stock, which I know by itself. But the trends were good. The weekly trend was good. The daily trend was good. The technical indicators like MACD was positive, and so on. And the speed and acceleration that I showed was also kind of decent. And so all you got to do is look at that kind of stock and then say, does it make sense to study this more, and then decide to invest.
Okay.
The answer, Paritosh, for me lies in the fact that whether you are an active tracker or a passive investor.
Okay.
Technicals is only for someone, or by I'd say non-fundamental parameters, which is technicals, derivative, data analysis, are those who want to put that extra time on a regular basis. You cannot be a passive guy and invest based on technicals, because the movements are very sharp, as Sandeep said, as Suhas said. Whereas for a passive guy, fundamentals will always take over in the long run, is what we believe.
So to add to that same point, what Mridul just said, so which is why knowing the fundamentals of the company are also important, which is why even though the stocks in that filter that I showed you, there were like 10 plus stocks in that list, and I only chose the Godrej Properties because the trends can look good on that one.
Okay. Okay, great. So I think we'll take more questions now. One question which is coming up from multiple people is, do any of you analyze existing portfolios and provide advice? I think Mridul can answer that.
We do that. We kind of do the advisory part to existing portfolio in terms of pain points, but we limit our views to the stocks which we cover. There'll be many names in the portfolio which we don't cover, and hence may have a silent or a negative view, but we'll not have a hard view on that.
Okay.
Multiply intends to do that from our beta launch since June.
Okay.
Our approach is fundamentally first on asset allocation. Somebody asked questions around that at the start.
Yeah.
We believe asset allocation is the single most important determinant of long-term wealth creation. If you buy one stock or 1% of your portfolio and it doubles, you're not really created wealth. So the focus is first on asset allocation, and then within each asset class, the most cost-effective and most suited investments for you is something that we will be doing from June onwards.
So how do you plan to do that? Like, will it be through individual advisory? Will it be through a software?
Yes, it will be through individual advisory based on video conferencing. We have a SEBI registered investment advisory company that will be providing it. Some of the community features that we talked of earlier, where you follow other people's portfolio, are all free features, but advisory will be a paid feature, not too expensive, maybe 10,000-15,000 rupees for 1 year.
Great. Okay. There is another question to you, Sandeep, from SO, and his question is: please share your views on investing in holiday homes. What are your views on investment there? Neutral, positive, or negative?
Okay. See, I don't know what exactly we mean by holiday homes. If you mean homes that are just on the outskirts of the city and that you can visit. See, globally, a big trade is happening since COVID.
I think it is more around holiday homes. It is more about Airbnbs and these kind of investments, so that you can just have a home which you can invest in and then list it on these places.
No, not qualified to answer on that. What I can do add is that globally we are seeing a trend where places about 2 hours from the main financial center are seeing an uptick in the last 1 year. You could take examples of places near Mumbai. You're seeing massive demand in Lonavala, Khandala area. You could take an example of Connecticut, where prices in 2020 were actually lower than 2007. But since COVID, prices there have bounced by 40% because people are saying, why not work out of Connecticut? So we are seeing that trade playing out, should continue. Overall, we are bullish on residential real estate, bullish on equities, not very bullish on fixed income, given that interest rates are low and we are expecting them to rise. So that's our preferred asset allocation at the moment. But I will add though that investing in hard real estate is not for everyone. You need to have the time, attention, and be able to withstand all the pains that come from any hard real estate investment vis-a-vis a pure index fund investing, which is much easier.
Got it. Got it. Thank you for that. I think there is one direct question to Abhijit, which is, are bonds purchased on Golden Pie held in investors' demat accounts or on the investor account on Golden Pie platform?
It's held in the investor's own demat account by default. Yeah.
Okay. And what are the demat accounts which you are like right now connected with, integrated with?
So you can invest in bonds and debentures via Golden Pie while holding demat with any demat provider as of now, right? So if you have got it with Sharekhan or or let's say Zerodha or Upstocks or anybody, you can invest through Golden Pie. The units will get credited to your demat account.
And what is the difference? Like, is there some advantage if you invest through Golden Pie versus other platforms, or it is all the same?
Yeah, so two of the key advantages over here is that firstly, we curate AAA to A rated bonds, the top quality ones across multiple providers in the market. So these are the largest bond institutions and the bank treasuries, right? So understandably, it's a very good quality papers that flow in. That's number one. Number two, there's a price discovery that happens. So the same bond can be held by 10 or more institutions at 10 different prices. Our algorithms automatically filter out based upon the quantum available with them and the price, the best price, and it's the one that is shown to the investors. And once that runs out, it goes to the next best price. So investors will always have the advantage of very good quality AAA to A rated papers that have gone through a stringent analysis before they get floated on the Golden Pie platform. Number one. Number two, 100% availability of that inventory, and number three, the best pricing in the market. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. I'll ask just one more question before we move on to the technical analysis questions, which have been asked quite extensively, right? My last question to you would be, what is the liquidity on the bonds listed, and how investing through debt is better than directly buying bonds?
Yeah, so with respect to the liquidity stance, yeah, the most of the bonds that are available on the Golden Pie platform, right? They are the ones which come in through the private placement route. So individual investors rarely get to know about it. Now, privately placed bonds typically have a face value of 2 lakh and above. Right? When you consider this set of bonds, the liquidity is significantly there. So what essentially customers do is they have a bond held with them. They raise a request on the Golden Pie platform, or they can raise a sell request through the other platforms where we are directly integrated right now, like Axis Securities on Zerodha Coin, right? And then the bonds are basically, purchased off through a separate purchase mechanism. Is there a 100% guarantee, that a sell will happen, or a 100% guarantee that the price would be more than at what I had purchased? No. But what are the chances of it getting sold? Of course, it will definitely get sold. It just depends upon what is the price that's being, coming in from the market for a buy.
Got it. Okay. So there are a couple of questions
Paritosh, sorry. Just one follow-up question to Abhijit.
Sure.
Does Golden Pie highlights if the rating goes down for anything which I've bought from your platform?
Yeah.
And if it does, suppose if a bond goes below the A rating, does Golden Pie suggest to sell or book out the losses? How does that part of the activity is there or not, is what I wanted to understand.
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely. So we very closely monitor, the credit transitions of all the bonds which are there on the Golden Pie platform, and also on the bonds which have been invested by the individual investors. So if there is any credit rating transition that happens, be it on the upside or the downside, it's automatically informed to those investors that, hey, this is the kind of transition that has happened. This is the repercussion on the bond price right now in the market. I mean, if there's a credit transition downside, definitely we suggest them that you can go ahead and sell it off. And if there is an upside above 10%, the prices have improved, then we also send a trigger to the customers that if you would want, you can always sell it off, because you'll be making a 10% capital appreciation on your assets and can move at similar price to another similar rated bond. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Abhijit. So I'll ask a few more questions on the trading side. So this question is from, I think I'll frame this question. So a lot of people are asking that how can they actually use technical analysis for long term or short term, and how should they actually go about it? I think Mridul, Suhas, your mics are on mute. Sandeep.
I will let Suhas answer it first. He has a core understanding. Then I'll put my views across.
Sure.
So the only technical indicator we use extensively is a MACD indicator. It's pretty standard mathematical concept where the short-term average and long-term average are compared, and you find out the changes, and it indicates a pattern. It indicates a trend, whether it's upward or downward, after the trend has been established, right? So it is a lagging indicator. It doesn't tell you what's going to happen in the future, but it tells you what's happened in the past and what is the indicator saying so. It's also kind of important to understand that part, because once the stock is kind of in the upward trend, there are multiple factors that keep going it forward. One is the company itself is doing something good, which is why the people are buying that stock independently. Two, the valuations are not clear to people's mind. So if you look at the Tesla, for example, Tesla almost went 8 times in last 1 year, 7-8 times. And I caught Tesla exactly in last December, I mean, a year ago. So we invested in Tesla, me and my daughter, and we made money in the process. And along the way, same thing happened for multiple stocks. So technical indicators are important to understand, but coupled with the fundamental understanding of those things. And seeing why the companies are, why the trend is moving up.
So as Suhas rightly said, for me, technicals can be an indicator, can be a filter to identify from the universe what stocks to buy. Senora has in fact got products for short-term trading on the derivative side, which heavily uses technicals. But will I invest on the basis of technicals only? The answer is no. Technicals can be filtering to understand the strength or what is happening in a certain sets of stock. But please understand that technicals changes on a live basis, not only on a daily basis. In a 10-minute, a technical parameter can change from being a buy to a sell. Like he said, MACD, they are DMAs. A stock is a buy above 200 DMA, but a stock can be a sell above below 200 DMA. Whereas fundamentals don't change that quickly, and hence are more reliable and consistent way. So technicals for me is nothing more than filtering, at least for long-term investment. Open to others' view.
Sandeep, what is your view on the same?
So we are more fundamental driven investors. We do have an asset allocation algorithm across various asset classes, which uses momentum as one of the input parameters. But frankly, it's largely run by on fundamental parameters. All I will say is, the world is divided between people who do fundamental and technical investing. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's just important to pick up your style, which is suited for you, and stick to it. If you are a technical guy, suddenly those start becoming a fundamental guy, or vice versa.
Got it. Okay, so another question, I think this is directly for Sandeep Baid. So any views on investing through REITs versus physical real estate?
So, REITs give you exposure to commercial real estate, and definitely prefer REITs over hard commercial real estate, because, unless you have really a sack full of money, it's not easy to lease out those properties, the tenants may leave, etc. So vis-a-vis commercial real estate, hard buying, clearly REITs are better. Today, there are 3 listed REITs in the market, and they give you a distribution in the form of an interest as well as dividend. Dividend from REITs is tax free, which is one of the reasons why people have invested in REITs. In the last 1 odd month, all the 3 listed REITs have taken a beating because interest rates are going up, and REITs have, in theory, infinite duration, and therefore they have gone down by about 10% each. So, but still, we have a neutral view on REITs. Prefer those over commercial real estate. Overall, it's a neutral view on REITs. Residential real estate is actually another asset class within real estate, where we have a positive view, but REITs is not an instrument which gives you access to residential real estate. That is something where you will have to do your own hard work, buy it and go through the pains of it, which frankly is not for everyone. If you are just looking for, a passive style of investing, you could actually just stick to index funds and such things. You want some diversification, you can get through REITs, Brookfield REIT, Embassy REIT, and Raheja Mindspace REIT. All 3 are listed on the market. Mindspace is most tax efficient because 93% of the distribution of Mindspace is in the form of dividend, and which is tax free for you.
Okay. Okay. Great. I'll just give a brief of what REITs are. So REITs are real estate investment trust, and basically anyone, even with small ticket size, can invest in real estate and the markets. If anyone wants to understand more about REITs, I think they can ask direct questions. Or Sandeep, if you can give a brief about REITs and how do they work, it will be helpful for others who don't know about it as an investment class.
Sure. So full form of REITs is real estate investment trust, where basically a trust is formed that collects monies from unit holders like you and me, and that monies is used by the trust to buy hard real estate assets. As per SEBI norms, 80% of those hard real estate assets have to be leased out. Now, given that uh, the leasing requirement is there, these REITs tend to hold practically largely commercial real estate in the form of offices, some also in the form of IT parks, and a very small percentage maybe in the form of hotels. So basically, it's a form where you can get fractional ownership into a large asset, right? It's not possible for you to go and own, say, 0.0001% of an IT park, but a REIT allows you to do so. REITs are listed on the exchange, so easy to transact, less cost of doing so. But remember that REITs do fluctuate a lot in price globally as well as locally. The movements in REITs can be really volatile. You should not think of them as a pure fixed income investment because they are not. They actually have a quasi equity element to it. You should be prepared for that volatility. Right now, the reason why we have a neutral view on REITs vis-a-vis a more positive view till about 8-9 months ago is that interest rates are inching up. And globally, whenever interest rates are inching up, effectively REITs, the value of REITs does go down because the discounting rate that an investor uses increases, and effectively the present value of the REIT goes down. But overall, I think it's good for the Indian market. There are 3 REITs that are now open. Hard real estate investment in India has always been so hard that it's great that the investor has an additional option.
Oh, great. Okay, one more question. I think this is for on equities. This is I will directly direct it to the panel. You can take it up. So this question is, when looking into a stock, how does one understand that there is an accumulation of the stock going on, or it is a distribution? Big people are exiting. So this is a very specific kind of a question from Vaibhav. So if you guys can throw some.
I will use this opportunity to explain it in based on it's a combination of screen reading and a technical parameter.
Yeah.
From a technical parameter, the stock, if shows a higher volume at a lower price, it means that it's a distribution going on. Which means the VWAP. So I will look at a VWAP on a daily basis to understand. The other aspect is if the stock is falling more in a falling market, it's a distribution going on. If the stock is going up less in a rising market, it means a distribution is going on, and vice versa. For me, it's more of a price volume combination based on parameters and rules which you set, which helps you to understand it.
Okay. I would want to understand this second part where you said that if the market is going down and the stock is going down more, that is where you should be wary of it. And can you throw more light on these things?
Okay,
Like,
Pritosh.
how can you be sure about that?
Yeah. So let me put it this way. First of all, the answer is not lies in one day. You have to track a period for it.
Right.
Let's say a stock like Larsen.
Hmm.
Now, Larsen, the way I will track it is Larsen has a beta of equivalent to Nifty. So if on a market, when market is down 0.5%, if Larsen is down 2%, which means it has fallen more than its due. There are 2-3 things which I will look for. Is it followed up with higher volumes? If so, whether on derivative side or on the cash side. Second is, what has other infra stocks done? If all infra stocks have fallen more than 2%, then I know that this is not a distribution, but this is a sector related news which has driven it. So there is no formula to it. It's an experience which helps you do that. It's a combination of 3-4 parameters. If I could explain you with that example, Paritosh.
Okay.
And it has to be a period. It can't be just one day in isolation. Distribution and accumulation doesn't happen in one day. So your answer can't be in one day.
Got it.
Hope I could answer Vaibhav.
Yeah. Any other view on that? Sandeep, Suhas?
No, I think the points that he mentioned were pretty accurate and pretty easy to understand. So nothing to add there in terms of what can be done separately. The reason I look at price volume movement specifically is because of the two things. One is acquisition distribution kind of activity, and then coupled with the news and coupled with everything that's happening, it tells you whether there's a sustained trend, or we can estimate whether a sustained trend or a short-term movement.
Got it. Okay. I think there is one last question which we can take, and then we'll wrap it up. And any more questions can be directly routed to the panelists later offline, right? So this question is for Sandeep. Some startups are trying fractional real estate. Any view on that?
Short view is first look if they have the relevant SEBI approval. REITs, what we discussed now, and AIFs, alternate investment funds, are the two SEBI approved ways of investors to own units of fractional ownership into the underlying assets. I believe a lot of them are trying to do it through routes that don't follow either of these two, which means the legal structure is not SEBI compliant. And I think a simple rule for an investor should be avoid anything which is gray on the regulation side. In fact, this is probably more towards black than gray.
Sandeep, just a follow up on this. Can there be REITs on real estate technically? As in, does it make a viability? Because AIF route, yes, fractional real estate can happen. But REITs, is it viable?
So we have three real estates, three REITs listed.
I'm talking about residential. I'm talking about residential.
Okay, residential REITs. No, residential REITs because the lease rentals today are so low.
Exactly.
So it's not really viable. And that's why there are no residential planned on the anvil also.
So fractional real estate can fundamentally be done only through AIF route, right?
Correct.
Thanks.
Okay. I think we are mostly done with the discussion. One last thing which I would like to say is thank you everyone for your time. Thank you panelists. Thank you attendees. I think this was a great session to begin with. We'll try having more such sessions going forward. One more thing, if anyone wants to shoot direct questions to any of the panelists, understand their product or anything, they can directly reach out to Ganesh Kudwa sir, Aso sir, me, or anyone on the WhatsApp group on IIM Sensex. And if they are not added to the group, we can make provisions and see how we can add them to a larger group or somewhere, right? So feel free to reach out, and we'll be having more such sessions. We'll try to be better in each and every session, and I'll leave it to Ganesh sir to end it, I think. Yeah, Ganesha, you're there. You're mute. You're on mute.
While he unmutes himself, I will take this opportunity to say a special thanks to Paritosh, Ganesh sir, and Aso for taking out and planning this with a lot of efforts. co-panelists for sharing their views. It is always useful to learn something more. And more importantly, the patient attendees who heard us.
Okay.
Seconding Mridul.
Paritosh, please call Ganesh sir. I think he might be AFK. You need to just call him.
Yeah. I think he's there. Ganesh, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think we had a very good session. Just let me get my video on. Okay. Fine. So speakers, thank you very much for a beautiful session. I think it's been very informative, and it also shows up in the numbers of audience that we've had. Although some, of course, have dropped out now, but nevertheless, it was a very informative and very engaging session, covering a cross section of various types of investments. So I think this will form the basis and the foundation of more such future investment masterminds that we will try to conduct. And I hope even the audience, who has been very, very supportive in terms of numbers, as well as we had to even open it out in YouTube, because the numbers that Zoom could handle, we had exceeded far early. So again, thanks very much, everybody, and we look forward to the next sessions. Before I close, I would specifically like to mention Aso and Sandeep Devarpalli, who have their outfits called C Marketplace as well as Hackstrap, which have been very supportive in sort of giving us the platform to conduct this so beautifully. And they themselves are very much engaged in bringing investors in our IMC forum to connect with the startups. That's a fabulous service that they're giving our community. And I would like all the people who are attended today to look at their options also, both from investment point of view as well as the things. They're doing a good job. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
See
so
you
much.
again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sandeep, can you stay behind?
Yeah.